Most founders sound exactly like the competition. If you want to be competitive in a crowded market, you can't just be better, you have to be different. I'm your host, Cameron Olds.
And I'm Dallin Merrill, and we're here to talk about how you can avoid being mistaken for your competition, differentiate your brand, and ultimately create a lasting competitive advantage for yourself in the market.
Welcome to Differentiate or Die. This episode of Differentiate or Die is brought to you by MessageOS. And by brought to you by, we mean written by.
If your team describes your product 10 different ways, your product is no longer differentiated. It's confusing, and so are your customers.
MessageOS helps big teams keep every sales deck, social caption, and support reply on message and on brand.
Clear, consistent, differentiated. Every time someone talks about you.
See how it works at protagonistcomms.co. Daryl Merrill, how are we doing?
Good. How are you, Cameron?
Doing good. I'm excited for today. This one will be a fun one.
Me too. It's fun that we have a guest on today.
We do have a guest on today.
I think you know him, maybe?
Maybe a little bit. He's my dad. Colby Olds is our guest today. We've been together my whole life, but he and I have a working relationship, and we've worked together on a few projects, worked together at Young Living, and then now on this cool new thing called Nutrition Rescue we're going to talk about today. So, anyway, Colby, Dad, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Yeah, we're keeping with our format of making it a versus. So this is still a competition, and you might get a little bit dug under here, Colby.
I'm good with spilling a little bit of blood.
Today we're going to talk about two different companies. The first is founded by Colby, Nutrition Rescue, and the second is Feed the Children. And Cameron, or maybe Colby, you know Nutrition Rescue best. Can you give us a quick background on what it is and what you do?
Yeah, so Nutrition Rescue is a nonprofit organization dedicated to solving chronic malnutrition. There is the differentiator for Nutrition Rescue is that hunger and malnutrition are not the same. And most, if not all, relief organizations in the world target their meals after a lens that solves hunger, which is just a caloric intervention. Quality doesn't matter. It's just the calories are there. Nutrition Rescue tackles chronic the downside or the downstream effect of chronic malnutrition is a compromised brain, limited potential, poor test scores, under average earning capacity, all because the brain didn't get the proper nutrients during the first 2,000 days of life to develop.
Explain a little bit more about, because I don't think it's obvious to me because, we've been working with you on this one, but for other people, I don't know if because I certainly didn't think of it when we started working on it, but the difference between hunger and malnutrition, because I think in most people's minds, it's the same thing, right? But there's a big difference.
Yeah, so like this whole direction for me was a bit of a selfish pivot to find happiness. So it's a little accidental as well. I didn't start out trying to tackle this. This wasn't a passion of mine 3.5 years ago. But in February of 2022, I was in a warehouse, a relief warehouse in San Pedro Sula, Honduras. And it was full of meals, 90 days worth of meals, going to 900 schools. And I was just so curious. I wanted to see what the meals were. We had just spent the previous day and that morning feeding meals, preparing meals in schools. And as we went through the warehouse, every meal was the same with different packaging. And it was all, and the funny part was, because of my previous role in product and marketing, I had enough of a sense. Well, the funny part of it is I really didn't have, I'm not an expert. So all of a sudden these meals were lentil-based soy protein. And I had enough intuition to just ask, why are you feeding the children in Honduras lentils and soy? Like, explain to me why this is the only meal you're offering. They don't eat this. And the reply was, really, it was a shocker to me. It was a stunner, because I realized what the nonprofit space accepts. Well, that's just what we're given. And I was like, that's got to change.
So all the meals in this warehouse, were they like donations and stuff
all
like that?
All donated from they were all a bunch of Yankee Doodle meals, cheapest you could make. Soy protein is as cheap a protein as you can get. Lentils, cheap. So this was an economic sweepstakes of how can we get the cheapest meal possible to get the most meals out so that we can make the best press release available. And then, but for me, I was like, yeah, but the kids don't eat it.
Right.
And then, but at that moment, I didn't know hunger and malnutrition were not the same. I just it was at that moment I was like, well, why would they eat this?
Right.
And that was the moment where Nutrition Rescue really began its search for differentiation. And again, it was accidental, Cameron. You watched the whole thing unfold. I mean, it was just this journey of curiosity of like, well, what would be different and what would you change? And so between caring and curiosity, I think Nutrition Rescue was born and created a differentiating mechanism that was just part of our opening DNA.
So the space is humanitarian aid and food relief that so many nonprofits play in and try to donate meals to like alleviate world hunger and all that stuff. And probably, would you say that Feed the Children, was that kind of, they're a pretty big player, right, in terms of just like food relief?
And doing good work, doing fantastic work. I just think the relief world got entrenched thinking that hunger and malnutrition were the same, and they're not. There's not any food interventions for moms to create better breast milk to build a better brain. There isn't a toddler intervention for children ages 2 to 5 when they're not on the breast any longer with mom that's still focusing on brain development. No one's playing the game of unlocking potential but it's expensive. There's a reason why. And if you're just trying to move and feed and you don't want to think about things, soy protein and lentils, boy, let's just ship out as many of those as we can.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. So
and the biggest organizations in the world are entrenched in this false narrative of we can solve. And again, the nice part about nonprofits is it's not a zero-sum game. I don't win at someone else's expense like you do in the for-profit world.
Right.
So to me, this isn't a competition. It's just a wake-up call that we can do better for the children.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I did a little bit of research on Feed the Children. They were started a lot earlier than you were, in 1979, by Larry and Frances Jones in Oklahoma. And I mean, they went to Haiti, and that was kind of their eye-opener, was like, oh, wow, there is a lot of hunger issues out there. We need to help, give food out. And so I think your two stories are similar in the fact that you both are trying to solve this problem of starving children.
Yeah, but no child in Honduras, so this is the difference between malnutrition and hunger. These children in Honduras aren't dying because of lack of food. Malnutrition is not, no one's starving to death with malnutrition. The brain is underserviced, the gut's inflamed, the immune system isn't functioning at the top rate. It's just the children fall way behind, and then you take a generation like that, and then that's why you have developing countries that never exit the developing side of it because their brains aren't developed in the collective. And so I think Dallin, back to that, this is the long game of malnutrition takes decades to measure. Like in hunger, the child didn't die, and the child gained weight, and the child's height is gained. The measurements are really simple to measure whether or not you're winning against hunger. No such measurement exists with malnutrition. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to solve it.
Right.
That's not an excuse. It's just complex.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I mean, one of the things we talk about on this show is, when it's all about the messaging, and sometimes that messaging helps inform how you create the product, right? So in this case, I totally see that, how you started with, okay, I need to fix this problem of not just hunger, but malnutrition. And that then changed how you built your product.
Oh, I mean, it's one of the most important parts of what we do is our packaging, so that the parents, when they receive it, it speaks to them. It's their culture, it's their language, it's their understanding. The meal tastes like home. There's no economies to scale. The meal we send into Honduras, the same packaging can't be used in Guatemala. Our approach has no economies to the cheapest price possible. What we do gain that others don't is trust in the community and an awareness that we care. And I think it's pretty easy to designate from a parental standpoint the group that feeds my children food that feels like home, and the group that feeds my children foreign ingredients that have nothing to do with our culture. I mean, I just think there's mountains. There's just a mountain of difference between those two approaches.
Let's take a look at feedthechildren.org and the Nutrition Rescue's site, ourmealsrescue.org. Just because I feel like the websites show a really good job, or do a really good job of showing just the differentiated approach one from another. Because
and obviously we're going to be a little bit biased because we helped. However,
yeah, but I also think, but down to that point of helping. Founders, it's hard being a founder because you have it in your head, but you're trying. I mean, Cameron would always just say, brevity is confidence, Dad, and you're saying too much. Well, that's just easier said than done.
Yeah.
Right.
What Protagonist does is just help you say less. But in saying it less, you leave an impression that drives activity. And it is not natural. It isn't. It's a different form. It's an elite level of branding. It's the chess of branding. There's a lot of branding and marketing agencies that play checkers with font types and colors and ringy word tracks and they're just all sizzle, all hat, no cattle. But to take it to the chessboard and actually say less with words and worry less about your colors, I just knew what color I didn't want. I didn't want green. And so I didn't care about my colors. I wanted orange because it's a rescue and rescuers wear orange. Orange was the only non-negotiable in my colors palette.
Yeah.
But what Protagonist has done, and I think what's easy to misunderstand, is Protagonist invites you to play chess to win.
There was a lot of time spent trying to figure out, just with you, even, just at family dinners, just trying to figure out, okay, cool. So, if we're going after malnutrition and, that means that we need to be culturally compatible, like you talked about, that means we need to be bioavailable so that, the ingredients are easily absorbable and all this stuff. You and I spent a lot of time, and Daryl as well, the three of us, talking about, okay, how are we going to communicate that differentiated position? The main thing is, creating a competitive advantage for Nutrition Rescue in the marketplace, so that when donors, they have their bonus check or whatever during the year, and they're feeling really, really, charitable, and they're evaluating where they're going to put their money, and they have feedthechildren.org and nutritionrescue.org pulled up. Like, there's a clear difference between the two, and look at all the reasons why Nutrition Rescue is maybe a better bang for your buck in terms of impact or just difference in mission, right? So this is feedthechildren.org, really cool. Right here up at the top, we've got make a monthly difference. So they've got some type of subscription thing. Daryl, I'm not seeing any like hero language or problem language up here.
Yeah.
Then down here, nourishing futures, ending childhood hunger. Okay, so right at the beginning, I mean, they're talking about hunger. They're talking about filling the belly, ending childhood hunger. We believe that no child should go to bed hungry, and so we provide children and families around the world with food and essentials the kids need to grow and thrive. Good deal. We are dedicated to ending childhood hunger globally. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I mean, like, right at the beginning, there's the distinction you were talking about, Dad, like, hunger and malnutrition aren't the same. Feed the Children's going after the hunger portion. But if we switch over to Nutrition Rescue, I mean, right at the top at the H2, we've got nutritionally optimized meals for chronically malnourished
I'm not seeing
children.
it, Cameron. You want to change your...
Oh, am I only sharing one tab?
Yep.
That's annoying. Share this tab instead. How about now?
Yep, perfect.
Cool. So then if we go to nutritionrescue.org, I mean, right at the beginning at the H2, we're seeing nutritionally optimized meals for chronically malnourished children. Like the differentiators, like right there in the H2. And then as we scroll down, chronic malnutrition cripples potential. So we're talking potential, not going to bed hungry. We're talking long-term.
And that's
then,
really good problem language, too.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah. I mean, we even have failure language down here too, where it's, compromised cognitive development, weakened immune systems, reduced lifelong productivity. The negative side effects of malnutrition are there on the display. I think this is my favorite section of the website. A thriving child is the only outcome that matters. It's great hero language. And then you have a whole section here dedicated to your differentiating factors, right, Dad? Malnutrition.
Those three things are exactly how no one follows us. This is where we leave everyone. This is how everything becomes different. And it wasn't easily arrived here. It was just, but again, a thriving child's the only outcome that matters. And if you're looking at cognitive development, you can't have worms in the belly. Otherwise, the worms are going to take the food, and then the brain still. So it's not about food. Nutrition Rescue is not about food. It's brain first. And when you start looking at it from a brain first approach, belly second, you're trying to figure out, how do I get the most important nutrients to the brain? Well, I've got to clear out the gut. I've got to get the gut healthy. I've got to make sure that the kids eat it and want to eat it. I've got to make sure mom and dad are approving it. So we look at it from and Dallin, to your, like I love Feed the Children. They're doing, I just feel like we're a 21st century upgrade. Like in 1979, when they went to Haiti, CNN, the headlines of CNN were children were starving in Ethiopia. Children were starving to death. We don't have many of those headlines today. We just don't have the frequency of those. So I adore, I respect, I honor Feed the Children. We're just tackling a bigger, more complex problem that you just can't throw calories at.
Yeah, and here's what I love too. I mean, you see this a lot in other spaces, but on the H1, you don't say the better way to feed children,
right?
Or there's none of that. It's where you see all the time with other industries. It's not, hey, we're the best at feeding children. Like, that's not what it's about. You focus on, why are we different? Why do we do it better? And that's what really captures people's eyes, is these three things: culturally compatible, brain boosting, and easily absorbable. And when people understand and realize what you're trying to build, and then they'll see that their bonus that they are trying to donate goes a little bit further.
But you can see how our formulation now is completely. Our formulation process has guardrails that are biological, cultural. There isn't just and it's just going to be more expensive. So we're a premium brand.
Yeah.
And would you say that the guardrails to your formulation, to your meals, would you say that those guardrails came specifically from thinking of this type of thinking, like, how am I different? How am I going to be how am I going to solve this problem in a different way? What's the right way to solve this problem?
I mean, like, who would have thought that solving malnutrition would start with the brain? Like, I didn't know that.
Right, yeah. Going back to what we talked about at the beginning, like the difference between hunger and malnutrition, people conflate the two, but they're very different.
And the narrative just needs to be reset. Like, the world is a much better place if the first 2,000 days of life are nutrient dense. The world changes because the cognition increases, and now rather than thinking about next week's survival, the child's curious, the child's showing up to school, the child's troubleshooting, the child's got friends that are troubleshooting. Now all of a sudden they're attending with greater test scores. I mean, the whole world changes. But I want to just go back. I think it's hard. So a founder, are you trying to make money? You're trying to solve a problem.
No.
Especially in your space, I really hope they're trying to solve a problem.
Yeah, like, I'll just go back to the legacy companies. Like, if you're a founder and you're just trying to make money, if you're in the blanket business and you're just trying to make money, good luck. I watched this last week. If you took the Hilton, if there was a Hilton hotel and a Marriott hotel, and you swapped their logos, would you know the difference?
Nope.
No. I promise you that when our meals start flowing into Honduras, you could not swap the packaging. The kids will know the difference. And so when you're just in the business of making money, I think you are already at a differentiating disadvantage. You've got to care. You've got to be willing to be curious, and you've got to be willing to just sit on some thinking and try to really kind of get to the chess side of it. And you don't play chess in a transactional way.
Yeah. So I would love to know how people have taken like an example of how differentiating your product has, if you have an example of that in action, like seeing what it means to them.
Well, so we've spent the last 3 years just trying to get our messaging and our platform and our structure in place so that we could scale for the purpose of solving the problem. So meals are not flowing into Honduras. Although we were at an event, we were feeding, we were giving out samples. We had our packaging on the table. A Honduran mother and her a teenage daughter walked past, stopped, walked quietly towards the table. At the table, tears started flowing down her cheeks. No words. The teenage daughter was like, "Mom, why are you crying? Like, we're in public. Let's not do that here." And she was confused. And the mom looked up at me and she said 4 words: "You understand and you care." Just from packaging. And so what does that mean? You know what? There's a blessing for the donors there's a blessing for us as donors to actually secure the meal so that it can be sent. And there's an effort there that's just not economical. I feel like we have a responsibility, Dallin, for our donors to be in this place of like, no, I gave you my money, you secured a meal, and the one receiving the meal knew that it was better, special, and more intentional. And so I thought that, and again, this was all just in the petri dish. Like, that wasn't planned, but that was the moment I realized, we're here to win, and we're going to win it. We're going to win the hearts of both the donor and the receiver.
Yeah. Have you seen that on the donor side too?
Yeah, because think about it when you start doing interviews and you're starting to generate user-generated content from Honduras or Guatemala or the Philippines, and you interview parents. And they circle back on that accountability loop. How's that interview going to go? Are you going to have to feed them words, or are they just going to know what they want to say because they appreciate it? And when that feedback loop comes, you as a donor are going to go, man, Nutrition Rescue hooked me up with a connection, not a transaction.
That's great.
Talk to me about the packaging, because keeping with I feel like Nutrition Rescue has just done a phenomenal job of just adding layer after layer after layer to its differentiated position. Like y'all's moat is so wide, you'd have to have like 10 drawbridges to cross it. So you have the brain boosting, culturally compatible, easily absorbable as like this is what our meals do. But then also talking about packaging, you've also taken it a step further with this cultural compatibility thing. And you were talking earlier about how each country or each region that these meals go to, they're going to have different packaging and different ingredients. Like, talk to me about that, because that's super interesting.
We had another experience where the regional director of Central America saw our packaging. He's Guatemalan, and he was like, this isn't going to work. This isn't, that's the wrong language. And I was like, of course it is. You're Guatemalan, and it's going to Honduras. But there was another moment where, as a Guatemalan, he knew it was not for him.
Ooh, you know what? That's super interesting. We haven't talked about this very much on the show, but I think a key benefit of being differentiated is just weeding out people immediately who should recognize that, this isn't me. This isn't for me. I don't have this problem. I don't, whatever it is.
I mean, think about those two dichotomies. The one dude goes, "This isn't for me," and the mother and daughter's got tears going, "You care, you understand."
Yeah.
And all it was packaging, and it's foil packed. It arrives fresher. Like, we just, rather than clear packaging that's got a bunch of English on it and language that doesn't matter, we spend the time to make sure that it arrives, that when they hold it up, I mean, we're a brand experience for the receiver as much as we are for the donor, and it matters. If you're trying to scale a global initiative to solve the problem, you can't go about it willy-nilly and expect an above average response.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And it's especially, I just go back and think of times that I've done food packs or gone to different events that have donations at them. And normally it's just like a plastic bag that you stick granola bars in, or whatever. And I mean, there's no kind of compatibility there, and it's all just shipped to wherever they're sending it. So that's really cool.
But like there's a lot of wonderful efforts, and people. What I'm hopeful is Nutrition Rescue can realize that there are just tiers to the response.
Yeah.
And listen, you could send a pallet of Snicker bars to an area where hunger was going to be the result of not getting more food, and a Snicker bar will solve the problem. A Snicker bar is not going to grow the brain. And I just think that reality and so for the last 40 years, humanitarian efforts have had a playbook that's been based upon hunger. And it just, there's a time and a place for that to evolve, and I'm hopeful that Nutrition Rescue can be a part of this community effort to recognize the children, their potential, their future deserves a better outcome than just the cheapest one-size-fits meal possible.
I think it's. I don't think it's an either or. In the instance of like Feed the Children and Nutrition Rescue, I think the beautiful part of differentiating your company like you have is, instead of it being an apples to apples comparison, it's an apples to orange, and people have to decide. Do I want an orange or do I want an apple? And maybe one day I'll want an apple, but today I want an orange, so I'm going to buy an orange. And or maybe they fall in love with the orange and they stay with the orange. And so
and I love that. It's an and. I'm not trying the world needs better giving apparatuses. The world needs scalability in the nonprofit space. And I'm hopeful that some of this business-minded strategic approach to playing chess rather than being in the here and now can help kind of adjust this narrative to be a little bit more mindful of the long term rather than the here and now and the press release.
Daryl Merrill, we might be a little biased because we helped develop the messaging, but what would you say? Is Nutrition Rescue differentiated?
Yeah, both different and clear and concise. And also, looking at Feed the Children's website, they also have done a really good job of first making themselves not the hero. I really liked that. They understand that people are donating for others, and we see that time and time again with other companies not doing that. So they get good marks on that, and they also get really good marks on making sure that they're clear. I think that they are missing a little bit on being different, and they definitely could work on that front. So.
But kudos to them for sticking to the hunger point. Like throughout the whole website, they do stick to the hunger. And so many people, they just meander and wander all throughout their website. They just chase the shiny thing, or they have such a hard time staying consistent. So kudos to.
The tough part about marketing is you've got to be prepared to make your life boring, because it's got to be repetition. And where marketing folks go wrong is this constant need and want to reinvent for the purpose of just reinventing for themselves. Yeah. They get bored, so they start tinkering. They get bored, so they start wandering. They get bored, so they it's just undisciplined. Marketing needs to be more disciplined.
Exercise and memorization, as Don Millard says. Well, Colby, Dad, thanks for hopping on.
Yep. Good to be here.
We wish you and Nutrition Rescue all the success, continued success in the world, and friggin' fantastic working with you. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Protagonist. Again, if you're looking for chess, this is where you go.
Thanks so much, and join us next time on Differentiate or Die.